our channel.
Welcome.
We have it's been an interesting week with all that's going on.
Busy.
But we want to kind of shift away from politics a little bit and just discuss something different, bigger picture of sort of what's going to happen in the future.
Because I think everybody, they are talking, everybody have conversation. We are trying to make sense of the world around us.
Everyone's not having a conversation, they're fighting.
Having conversation, discussing, arguing, fighting. But just that's a nature, right? It doesn't matter how smart or well-informed somebody is, just, especially in this day and age, there's just so much information. We are bombarded with so much information and distraction. Everybody that they're trying to is like the matrix. Everybody's trying, literally is like a matrix. Everybody is trying to make sense of what's going on. And I was actually watching today. People are recommending the Matrix 4. Have you seen it?
Yeah, they want to do a revamp.
Matrix 4. So it's like
Matrix.
The first three weren't confusing for most people. Now they said those are all not real world. They're gonna come up with another.
Well, yeah, I mean the whole concept of you're living in an ultra reality world.
So it just means it's going deeper and deeper. So
and the machines are basically using your body heat to generate electricity, so they could.
So giving that example is we are all trying to make sense. Now some of this stuff are, especially people interested in history and military history or just the governance, world governance, empires, rise and fall, countries, civilizations. So you're going to see, and now we have time to study it, right? But a lot of think tanks and smart people, a lot of people that are actually funded by big money people are focused both governmental and non-governmental, especially in advanced countries, right? I mean, this been like, since several centuries that, let's say East India Company when it was founded and they started, reaching out to all corners of the world. Those are the ones actually sending people, missionaries and all that, to learn about the cultures that they were trading, to see how they can actually use their strength and weaknesses to their benefit, to trade or they colonize or so many other things. So this has been going on for several centuries, but now it's getting like a new meaning to it, because in the age of information, which is right now, the information, a lot of countries, a lot of civilizations that for so long were kind of not being confident in themselves, right? You have a lot of countries that they have a lot of resources, but you see
Africa.
Right. They have a lot of confidence issues because they say, okay, we can never do it.
No, it's not that they can never do it. It's because of a corrupt government they have set in place.
Right. That's part of just not having the confidence that they sell out the country.
The government kind of controls the government controls the mass. They have control over the mines. They have control over the natural resources that's there. It's the same thing in the Middle East. Middle East doesn't have any confidence, but natural resources is a lot.
Right, but this issue is just a lot of external powers.
There's external interference.
So,
it's always.
Or they have interests that they have to get involved in, even if they don't want to get involved.
You gotta realize some of these countries, they're not rich by nature. They don't, because the corruption has lasted so long. They don't have the infrastructure to actually be able to do their own mining, for example. Like Africa, for example, Africa as a continent itself, it's a rich continent. It has a lot of natural resources, but because of the corruption that's going on within its government.
Right, but I'm just saying, my question is even taking it further, right? I just want to bring a different question. For the past 2 decades, especially after 9/11, actually kind of amplify, right? Because you had a bunch of terrorists doing crazy stuff, and then the whole world had to ask themselves the question, okay, why these people do this? Even in this country, People, they start asking questions. Okay, we have to find out, okay, what the cause is, what the root cause is, and all that. And there's a lot of discussion about just, the peak, what they call it, the peak of the West. Not just the United States, just the West.
Western
We're talking about the Western Europe, just the Western civilization. And this is commonly known, like it's just widely discussed, academia, financial, everybody. Now the thing is it true or not? And most honest observers that they would say yes, it is. Now, how do you calculate that? Obviously, the loss of industries, the loss of job, the loss of standard of living, the actually reduction in longevity, and people are dying much faster for the first time. Like in the USA, the life expectancy has decreased rather than increasing. For several decades, it was increasing. Now it's decreasing. Actually means that people are dying earlier than in the previous generation or past couple decades. So all of this we are talking about this. Now the thing is, if we have this issue over here in the Western United States, what is going on in the rest of the world? And or the rest of the world, for example, would say for the past 2 centuries plus, the United States was the shining beacon for freedom-loving or just a representative type of government, and that kind of a republic system, right? Just a representative democracy.
The land of opportunities.
The representative, we exported that. That was our biggest export. We said, okay, we don't want to be another colonial power, but our power was to export our ideals, and once those countries accepted our ideals and became accepted and implemented a similar system to ours, then we increased in trade, and obviously both sides benefited, and so on, which led to the rise of the United States as a superpower and the West as a whole, right? Economically,
you also
academically,
you also have to include
militarily.
You also have to include the invasions into other countries that we.
No, I'm just talking about the bigger picture.
Well,
I'm talking about the past 2 centuries.
Yeah, but you also have to give it a little context, and depending on who was in power at the time when these developments were happening, the United States decided to invade other countries to basically promote its democracy upon those people, to basically have them live the same way that we did, basically, or we do. Democracy that everybody.
It's not a democracy; it's a republic. Representative.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so it's not a democracy.
no. I agree.
I actually don't like that word. It's just that.
It's a terminology.
Yeah,
we are a republic
because it's misunderstood and just misused.
Right. So we are a republic, but the term democracy, it's loosely used to push an agenda. But then again, the question is how did we get here, and what's the aftermath of it? What's gonna happen in the world? What is the world gonna look like in the next century or two? And that all depends on how people are gonna react to this whole. They want not a centralized, but almost like a global behavior of everybody acting the same or being under the same type of policies and procedures. So it's gonna vary because everybody comes with different background, everybody comes with different ideology, everybody comes with different culture. Culture is the biggest part of it. Culture is the biggest part of it. A lot of people in the Middle East don't like the Western culture because it conflicts with it conflicts with their history. It conflicts mostly with their religion, the way they grew up. Like for example, in Middle East countries, family unity it's big. Nuclear family is huge. Everybody wants to stay close to their families. Everybody wants to be part of a bigger family structure. But when you come to the Western world, everyone's escaping from home. And they make it like, at 18 years old, you're kicked out of the house. You go figure out what you want to do with life. And a lot of people don't want to be that way.
I think despite that, despite of cultural decline in the West, that means we discussed it briefly in previous episodes that for decades and over a century, like for a couple centuries, was saying, okay, all the migrants or anybody just running away from some other places, they wanted to come to U.S. They said, okay, I can practice my faith. This is a family-oriented society and all that stuff. And that's been declining, right? But I'm just saying, my question is, despite that, a lot of countries still wanted to become like West, mainly due to economical success,
Yes,
right?
I
Because
agree.
they said, okay, look at the United States. It's a powerful country. It's a very dominant economically and all that. So we want to be a representative republic, maybe because if we have that system, then we wouldn't have, let's say, dealing with the monarchy and things like that, very focused central government, and maybe we can do better. Obviously, there would be more transparency and all that, and that was their ideals. Now, the question that I had brought up, I said, okay, that was an ideal, and it did work, right, to a certain extent. Now we are coming to the era that we are clearly seeing it, that it doesn't work. That even in this election, this past election, nobody has confidence. A lot of people, I'm not saying nobody, but majority of people, a lot of people, I mean, despite if it was the other side or this side, they have questions about the integrity of the process, safeguards, election, all that stuff. I mean, even if you have election, I mean, really, I mean, if this is supposedly to be a representative system to, let's say, choose the most qualified person to lead the nation out of a country of 350 million people, we wouldn't be end up with the two candidates we had. Okay, so so that shows that this system actually is not functioning
faulty.
Is not functioning properly. That means founding fathers, when they had this representative system, it wasn't like this at all. They had, let's say, landowner. Right now, a lot of people, they're going to say they're brainwashed with everything. The first jump on racism. Obviously, that was a population back then, but majority of those people, they didn't necessarily have the slaves. There are so many wealthy people. John Adams, his son, out of the first 12 presidents, those are the two presidents that they never owned slaves. And they were successful people.
Here's a question.
So let me just go on this train of thought. So I'm just saying is that there were a lot of successful, wealthy people that they didn't have slaves. They never condoned that. A lot of those were plantation. Not even all of them, right? So they were just very targeted in certain areas and all that. So we can't say, oh, everybody who was, at that time, or just, so meaning their representative government, what the idea was much more of a selective process. It's kind of like a wise man. Somebody actually had to show that they are successful, they have achieved something great in their community and in society as a whole, to then they can carry the mantle of representing the people in their community or state and then at the national level, right? Now, that's been kind of watered down, that now, let's say somebody who has 3 PhDs in STEM fields have the same vote as Honey Boo Boo, for example. You know what I'm saying? So in a society, we have to really, really ask serious questions, right? Participatory representative system, obviously, I mean, to me, just this election, just so many irregularities just doesn't count. So I don't say that, I don't see as my vote as counted or not. But I think most people, they will say if the system is competent, transparent, and can check itself, even if it's not everybody have voice in it, that means if it's representative in a true sense, that means you have, for example, somebody in a local councilman, and that, I mean, up until 1970s, even the party nominees were elected from within the party. They didn't have a popular vote to choose the party's candidates. So the people who were representative and the delegates of the party, that means they have paid their dues. They were in that position Those are representative, right?
That's
and
the way
actually
it
that
should
makes
be.
it because it calms down. Because now, if you're involving the whole society in this shenanigans, so to speak, now it's becoming kind of who has the biggest horn and the biggest microphone to steer this herd of sheep one way or the other. Okay? Now it's a propaganda game. It has nothing to do with qualifications because I said if it was qualifications, the 2% that we had candidates or even people before them, everybody at least knows somebody visible. I mean, so many people with much deeper qualifications than, let's say, the leaders we have had or we have at this time, at this point, even at our national level or state level in the Congress. I'm not talking just about the president, right?
Yep.
Because we are so now a lot of the countries in the world now. I painted this picture. So this what we were, representative, very limited representative republic, came and increased the participatory and all that, and now he's get to this point and is not functioning. Obviously, economically, politically, socially, is not functioning. We have lost our moral mandate globally, with attacks on family and all this like a poisonous ideology being taught in
Cancel culture.
Garbage being taught by the radical leftists in the school system, and we are not being served by our institutions, all being failed, right? No transparency, a lot of corruption, and other countries are smart. They're seeing that, right? So they're seeing that, okay, what's happening? They see the West in decline. Now, if a society and if a civilization is declining, who in their right mind would want to adopt their system?
Nobody wants to adopt it. And
hence, you are seeing this, what they call it, deliberalization or de-democratization in Asia and elsewhere.
And that's how you lose power. And
Right,
recently our delegates were in China, trying to have talks. And you know what the Chinese told the U.S. delegates? You guys are racist. We don't want to deal with you guys. And that's it. Boom.
Yeah,
done.
Never,
When have you ever seen anything like this to be done to the U.S., where a U.S. rep goes to China and the Chinese turn around and tell you guys are racist?
Well, they came to Alaska, but
Well, I mean, whatever.
so
But
that's a minor point.
okay. The point was, China turns around and tells you U.S. delegates that you guys are racist. Look at your country, and they are basically feeding off the virtue signaling that's happening here.
I think obviously they're involved in a lot of it. They're
because
actually
now they
adding
know.
fuel to the fire.
Yeah,
because
but
they
in
see us as
order
a
for a
competitor.
society to adapt to another society's way of living, that other society needs to have a strong leader to be able to represent that style of living and say, hey, this is how we live. It's because the laws and the procedures we have in place work. Okay? We don't have people at each other's throat calling each other racist, calling each other misogynist, calling each other X, Y, and Z. So when you start doing that, and I think this was a propaganda warfare on the U.S. during this election year, because what did they do? What did the propaganda do? Is create the division. Basically, there was a crack in the egg. That crack has come apart, and the egg yolk is about to drop off. That's what they did. They expanded that crack. They widened the crack to basically make it unstable. That shell is no longer stable to hold together. It's gonna come apart. And if you want other societies to adapt to a Western type of society that's solid, that's rich, economically strong, and as far as the education goes, they have the best education system in place. You need to be strengthening yourself first before you try to push that on others. But now, that's not the case anymore. This is why U.S. is no longer ranked as the superpower. because China
No,
basically.
it's going to be. I think like you're going to see in the next 2 decades you're going to have multiple regional powers.
Oh yeah.
You're going to have multiple
It's
regional
gonna-
powers.
it's
It's
gonna
not
be a
going to be one
mess.
super. China is not going to be like a sole superpower just because U.S. is declining.
No, I mean
Once that
gonna be a
declines,
mess.
that power vacuum,
We're
a
gonna
lot of other
s-
countries that they're more successful. Now the thing is, now my comment on this is. So we already discussed that, okay, the West is declining, the U.S., okay, this is a system, this is the,
UK
what's
is
going on,
declining too.
and financially, culturally, we don't have the moral mandate, according to our own also, right?
Yeah.
If you have one party going and saying everybody in the country are racist, they say even if you don't know about yourself, you're racist. You just don't no idea if you're racist. This garbage.
You're subconsciously
This garbage by
racist.
some like a psychologist lunatics in so-called academia that they never worked physical labor or just done something actually physically productive or anything real, right? It's just in their mind coming up with all this garbage hoo-ha-ha ideas. They don't understand the consequences, right?
Yeah.
It would be like somebody coming and trashing their own family. If you're dating somebody, right, and the person trashes their own entire family as the most disgusting, awful people on the planet,
And they do.
how likely is it that you would be more interested to date that person or just have a life with that person? If that person is just trashing their family and the family is trashing that person, right? Not only as somebody who has flaws or maybe just making fun or something like that, as evil, as the worst person on the planet.
And we're not talking about regular arguments.
We are
here.
not talking about regular arguments. They're saying, okay, this is the most evil, disgusting person. This is all this garbage and stuff that they are poisoning. This is not 1920s. The whole world is watching all the conversations taking place over here. We need to really have a handle of how, as a whole society, especially the politicians, conducting their language and the messaging that they're putting out for the public. Maybe they think this has, domestic audience. There is no such a thing as a domestic audience. If Nancy Pelosi comes and says some garbage things, their first act in the Congress is to ban the use of words father, mother, sister, brother, father-in-law, mother-in-law, grandfather, grandmother, uncle, aunt, with garbage other words. This is not a domestic issue. This is not just only what they call it, paddling to their own crazy
base.
lunatic radical left base. Social justice work. This is not. The whole world is watching, and they're saying these lunatics, these idiots, just ban the use of the words father and mother and brother and sister and
Grandma,
uncles and
grandpa.
grandma and grandpa.
Let me get one more in. Amen, a woman.
Right. So they're watching this lunacy.
Oh my
They're
God.
watching this lunacy in real time. This is not like they're getting this news 6 months later. They're getting this. If you are able to just see it in news popping out, they are seeing it on internet. Is the world?
Oh, it's gonna be the forever.
So they're looking at this. They said these people are just an absolute lunatics. Why in the hell? Not only would we want to be like them, but even so think about it. A lot of governments that they had some sort of fear, hesitation, they're taking notice. These are smart people. The same thing with the cartels, like in the border. As soon as some policy changes, they know it before even the politicians have the sign.
They're prepared. They're prepared.
Right? Because
yeah.
they pay attention and they take advantage of it. Now, when you're talking about ruthless politicians like President of China and Putin and the government of Iran and other adversaries, they're watching every step. They're monitoring. They're analyzing. And every weakness that we are signaling, every lunacy that we are signaling, they're amplifying that in their society. They said, oh, you wanted to run away from here and go live in the United States. They show the homeless.
Yeah.
They show all the nastiness. They show all the crime. They show these burning cities and stuff.
Yeah.
They say, oh, look, they're just toppling their own founding father statues. There are all this stuff. Why would you want?
Here's a challenge.
I mean,
why don't you comment below and tell me how many propaganda have you seen from other countries? Oh, look how bad our country is doing. Especially
absolutely.
Iran,
It's all over the
Iraq.
place. All over the place.
Yeah.
Now that has resulted in a lot of reform in their own governments, right? So
Yeah.
think about it. Since Mao died, I think it was early 70s. I have to look,
Yeah.
but Mao died like early 70s, right? When Nixon had the opening of the China soon after, like Mao died, like. So since then, for like almost 40 years, so they had party chairman, they had the Communist Party elections. They still call themselves People's Republic of
Yeah.
China, right?
Yeah.
So they get the concept of republic, but it's their version of republic. Or Russian Federation, they get the concept of federation,
But it's
but
their
it's
own
on their
version.
own version of
Yeah.
federation. Now you're looking at it, they said, okay, all this stuff, having all these elections and stuff is too much, is unstable. It brings a lot of division. Look at the West, which these people are the godfather of this system, and look at what's happening to them now.
They're falling apart.
Why would we follow their footsteps?
Exactly.
Okay? And any rational person would ask that. And what you are seeing in Supreme Leader in Iran, they get the Guardians Council. They're not even kidding around. They only select the candidates,
They feel
and
fit.
actually they're more stable than they ever were since the revolution 43 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta
And
realize.
she is the president for life. Now, she is pretty much like a Chinese emperor.
Yeah.
So they had that history, what we talked about, that these are ancient cultures. They have had thousands of years of history of empire and kingdoms. Now, they can call it the republic or whatever, have some like a modification.
I mean,
But
they
in
do call
reality,
it. They
it's a
do. They
concentrated
do call
power.
it. It's in the name, Islamic Republic of Iran.
Right, but I'm just saying in reality,
In
the supreme
reality-
leader is like a king.
Yeah.
So it's
the
kind of
Supreme
like
Leader
it's a
has the final say.
quasi-republic.
Yeah, the Supreme Leader has the final say.
Because they say if you are a true republic, that means you give say to people, and say people can't handle it, and the politicians, and they see the corruption over here and all the instability and all this chaos and noise and stuff. They said, no, this is too much. We don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is the discussion about this topic is a deep discussion, because this is actually is the future of the world. Meaning, if the West and the representative republic system, representative government system as we knew it and as it exists,
Yeah.
if it doesn't function anymore, something else or some other form of government or some other configuration of the same republic is going to become dominant. That means they're going to show China is saying, oh, we are more competent. Look at our economy. Look at our productivity.
Yeah.
You guys can't even make anything. I'm making all this stuff. I can shut it down and all that stuff. And they have challenges too. So I'm not saying, oh, they're just all dandy, they're Switzerland. But I'm just saying they have become confident to project that.
Yeah.
They never will like that. So as somebody who grew up in the East and coming to the West, always people had admiration for the West. They said, oh, colonial, all this stuff. Always you think, oh, the West has the best of everything, best of everything. Even if you came over here and you went to San Francisco, somebody pooped in the street, you say, okay, this is San Francisco, but America is the greatest country in the world, right? You go other places, that doesn't necessarily happen, right? You just don't walk on poop and needles and stuff. But you say, okay, this is just this
Yeah,
stuff,
I mean,
right?
but look, when you have saturation of people, that what happens.
I understand it, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying the image, the whole concept, the economy we're talking about. We're
Well, yeah,
talking about
they
big
focus.
stuff. I'm not
Well,
talking
they
focusing
focus
on
the
that.
image to the negative, but you gotta realize that's how propaganda works. They focus.
Yeah.
They focus the image always on the negative. The positive is very small. Negative
So I
is
think,
always
like,
big.
honestly, my own opinion, getting a summary of this is, I agree with the fact that the West is declining. I agree with that fact. Now, does it have to be like that? Are we done as a system? Is this going to collapse? Is it going to survive? Is this, as Abraham Lincoln said, is a government of people is going to survive or not going to survive, right? Because they had that challenge too, Civil War. We had the Civil War. Now, we are going to see that. I think there are ways to reform that. There are ways to kind of correct that. But I'm not necessarily, personally, I'm not very optimistic given my own life experience. I'm not very optimistic that's going to happen. I'm hoping if there is going to be any kind of decline or shift in power globally, it happens gradually so it doesn't cause chaos. You know, a lot of countries, they get separated over time. Let's say the Spanish Empire collapsed within a short period of time in the War of 1898 when with the United States. Nobody thought like that would be an easy a win for U.S. But because they had so many issues, when actually somebody came around to challenge them, they collapsed.
Yeah.
They collapsed. They took over Cuba, islands in Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and all that. And that Spanish Empire that had control over South America for almost 500 years, culturally, economically, and all that has collapsed. And look at Spain right now.
Yeah, I think we should do another segment on this topic.
Yeah, so it's a deep thing. You just want to throw it out there. We will talk about it more.
We'll do another discussion on this.
But the whole point was big changes, big shift in power taking place as we speak.
It's happening.
And looking back, probably 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, we're going to be looking back, hey, we had this discussion. I just wanted to have, I'm not saying we made any kind of like an inroad making changes or anything.
But
you just want to put it out there. You just want to have awareness, and then how you can take precautions with your investment, with your finances, with your family, with where you want to live, right? Even in this country, where you want to live, exactly, where you want to live, so you're minimally impacted or not impacted at all. These are the things that we need to look at.
Absolutely. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Please share, subscribe, and hit the like button. Make any comments you want on the bottom.
Comments or any issues that you think we need to discuss and cover, we will
respond to you. But please push that share button, push that like button. And God bless you. God bless this great country.
God bless America.